So I love Tony Finau, and he sort of fits the narrative that I've created. That the books, like, just it almost feels like they've created a whole card of suckers bets, and I'm a sucker. Like I'm in this candy store, and I'm just buying all the lollipops I can. Finau 70-1 with his
Yeah.
major track record. I know he hasn't closed the job, but you're not asking me to pay 33, 35-1 anymore for Tony to pull it off. It's 70-1. Could fit that easily into my side pocket of outright tickets. He's a fantastic win player. So if
Right.
that element shows up, that's something you could count on. I'm a believer in Tony Finau. But yeah, I mean, there were Hideki Matsuyama 100-1s on Sunday night, Monday morning. I am of the belief that the books are like distracting me with these big numbers and neon lights, and Scotty Scheffler might just be, ready to take all our money. But
Yeah.
yeah, I, like you, was very attracted to that Tony Finau 60, 65-1, 70s on offshores. Like, it's
Mm.
crazy.
Well, I didn't want him on Baltimore because I just thought he'd get hurt, and they have the best farm system in baseball, and I didn't want them trading for a player who is arguably the greatest baseball player of all time. I just didn't want him trading for him because I just didn't think he could keep this up. I just didn't think he
Yeah.
could. We see now he has that blister right on his hand or something like that. Now they might dial down his pitching. Like, these are the things you get concerned about, especially when you know you're going to have to give up so many products. It's why right now I don't want the Orioles to trade for Shohei at all. Like, I've just accepted the Orioles are not having Shohei Ohtani on their baseball team. They're not paying him that contract that he's going to demand in the offseason. They should not go after him at the deadline. Like, do not blow up this farm system that you worked so hard to build over the last 5 or 6 years. You are in a great spot right now if you're the Orioles. You have all this young talent. You have your young core. Adley, Gunnar Henderson, and Jackson Holliday should be the future of the Orioles for the next decade plus. That's the core that you build around. And I think now that they moved the wall back in left field, I think that's only going to help them attract pitchers in the offseason, starting pitching. That's why I told you last night, I don't want the Orioles going after starting pitchers. I think they should use all their assets, go after relievers, get starting pitching in the offseason. But yeah, people are saying that who are some teams that could offer some packages to the Angels for Shohei? The Orioles, no doubt, could offer them the best package, but they shouldn't do it. Like, don't do it. Would I like Shohei on my team? Of course, but I don't want him for a 2-month rental.
Let's actually talk a little Georgia football because I have a hot take for you. I think Georgia's going to win the national championship, maybe, unless Clemson does. But I think they're going to be even better, like with Carson Beck taking over, man. He played 7 games of mop-up duty, but he threw 4 touchdowns and over 300 yards. I love Stetson Bennett because he made me a bunch of money the last 2 years. But I don't think there's going to be a huge drop-off. When you look at this offense, Kendall Milton's back. They lose Kenny McIntosh, but they're still got 3 of their top 4 backs. Arian Smith's going to see some targets. McConkey's back. He had 2 touchdowns in the national title game against TCU. But the most important thing is Brock Bowers is back, and I think he's the best football player in the country. And even though you lose Darnell Washington, you replace him with Oscar Delp, who's now a sophomore. 3 starters are back on the O-line. I think offensively they're going to be just as good, man, and defensively, I mean, you are just going to replace 5 stars with 5 stars every year. The secondary will be a question mark. But they're going to be undefeated when they see Tennessee, and I don't think Tennessee could beat them this year. So it's tough to bet against Georgia.
This schedule's such a joke.
It's a
I mean,
cupcake
it is like, what are we doing? UT Martin, Ball State, UAB, Panera Bread Tech, Starbucks University. I mean, who else are they going to play? You got Vanderbilt on here. It's ridiculous. Obviously, they play Georgia Tech at the end of the year.
Georgia
but,
Tech's terrible, Pete. Even this year, even after firing their AD. and
No, I
bringing
know.
that
They're
entire new
awful. They're
coaching staff.
terrible. Tennessee's the only game where you look at and you think maybe this is the game. Now, maybe Georgia has a game this year like they did last year where Missouri kind of gives you a scare like they did last year. Like, maybe they have one of those games. Maybe it's Auburn. Maybe it's Ole Miss. Maybe it's Missouri again. I'm with you, though, Ryan. I mean, how can you think Georgia's going to lose a game on this schedule that's not Tennessee? I mean, how can you think that's going to happen? I can't see it. They're too deep. Their defense is too good. They're too well coached. They're just better than everybody else in the SEC. So I'm with you. They are the deserving favorites. It's tough to go back-to-back. It's even tougher to three-peat. And that's going to be the toughest part for Georgia, is kind of just beating themselves. Like,
I'm going to make the case against the Bills.
I
Now,
love Buffalo.
I do like the Dalton Kincaid draft pick. I absolutely loved him at Utah. They're going to play him a little bit in the slot. They're going to run a lot of two tight end stuff. Gabe Davis should be healthier. He had a high ankle sprain last year. I don't really love Ken Dorsey as the play caller. I think they really, really miss Brian Daboll. I don't know if it's sustainable for Josh Allen to be a Superman on third down and convert 65% of the time. Also, like, you look at it, man, and they have the fourth most difficult schedule, which is the 10th largest jump this season. They have a schedule where they're going to see Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Aaron Rodgers twice, Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, and Tua twice. And what worries me is that defense, actually. The pass rush completely fell apart the second half of the season after they lost Von Miller. He's coming back. He's another year older. He's coming back after another injury. In the secondary, Micah Hyde had a neck injury. He barely played. Trey White barely played, coming off a knee injury. I think there's going to be some regression. And I love Josh Allen, man. I like Stephon Diggs, but there's something weird going off there. I know they're coming off another 13-win season, but I like the Jets. I like the Jets in that division. Not at the current price, but I'm fading Buffalo, man.
Yeah, you're crazy. Buffalo's going to win this division, Ryan. This year's AFC East is last year's AFC West, and I'll tell you why. The teams are so comparable. The Bills are the Chiefs, okay? Everybody's looking for the team that's going to knock off Buffalo, just like we were all looking for the team that was going to knock off Kansas City last year. The Jets this year are the Broncos from last year. Great defense. You poach away a quarterback who had been in a city, an organization for a long time, right? Russell Wilson goes to Denver. Rodgers comes to New York. Everybody's all excited. They're going to be in a bunch of primetime games early on in the season. The Jets are the Broncos. And then the Dolphins are the Chargers. You love the roster, a lot of upside, but there's also a lot of what ifs. What if Tua stays healthy? What if Jalen Ramsey turns back into his old self?
That
what
ain't
if,
happening.
What if this and this and this? The Chargers are the same way, and then the Raiders are like the Patriots, right? Like, you just know they're not going to win the division. So the Bills are the Chiefs from last year. We're looking for that team who's going to knock them off. A lot of people like the Jets. A lot of people like the Dolphins. Folks, it's still the Bills. I think the worst thing that could have happened for the rest of this division is what happened in the playoffs last year, where Buffalo got humiliated at home by the Bengals, challenged their manhood, their will. They just smashed them on both sides of the line of scrimmage. So Buffalo's always been a great regular season team here the last 3 years or so when Josh Allen's really turned it on. So I love Buffalo. The fact we're getting a plus 130, I think, is a great price.
All right. Man, I can make the case for Baltimore. I went over on the win total, over 9.5. I also bet them again to win the AFC North. The Bengals have stayed really healthy. I know they've had some injuries here and there, like Jamar Chase missed some time, but you look at the last couple runs they've had, they've been pretty healthy. Also, like, they don't really have a rest advantage. They have 5 games with a rest disadvantage, and the biggest one is going to be later on in the season against the Ravens. That's a short week road game, so they go to Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
I like Baltimore this year. Lamar has actual weapons. They're going to be able to push the ball down the field as long as OBJ could stay healthy. I like that contract. Mark Andrews is back.
Who's calling plays?
Not Greg Roman.
That's the right answer.
And that's all that matters.
That's right.
And then on the defensive side of the ball, like, I know they're not what they were a couple years ago, but I like Baltimore a lot. And you look at it, man, every year they're in first place, and then Lamar gets hurt.
Right.
Lamar just has to stay healthy, and I think he will this year because I think he's going to stay in the pocket a little bit more. And I also like J.K. Dobbins. Again, he's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay motivated. I know he's pissed off right now, like mostly all the running backs right now. But I like Baltimore, actually. I think Cincinnati still wins 10, 11 games, maybe 12, but I think that 3 or 4, maybe all 4 teams get in the playoffs. I definitely think that at least 2 in the North get in.
Tell you what the bet is Washington's the bet. I don't think they win the division, but if there's a surprise team this year, it's them. And I agree with you, Dallas, like that should be like a plus 200, plus 210. I think the gap between Philly and Dallas is way larger than that. The Eagles probably have the best roster in football. Their O-line's the best. Hurts is fantastic. The defense is elite. They have 2 number 1 receivers, good running backs. They got Swift. I mean, the Eagles are fantastic. The only thing in the back of your mind that worries you is, like you said, there hasn't been a repeat winner in the NFC East in like 20 years. So that's the one thing. But Washington, man, what makes me intrigued by them is we just don't know how good Sam Howell is, right? It's a lot like Jordan Love.
I mean,
know. We just don't know how good or bad Sam Howell is. So if he's great, Washington's defense has some pieces. Offensively, they got two pretty good receivers. Brian Robinson's a good young back. So the Commanders at 10-1, I think, are an interesting sprinkle, but I do like the Eagles to win the division.